All right, let's get some football to talk in. Let's bring on Eagles Insider Dave Spadaro. Dave, so great to catch up again, man.
Great to see you both. We have one game left in the preseason, and then we're off to Brazil. Can you
Talk
believe it? It's
talk to
already
us
here.
talk to us about this preseason. I mean, we've got new coaches, new faces, lots of change, lots still the same. Talk to us about the feel and what you've seen out there as somebody who's been through this team through the years.
Say that my feeling is that you are watching a good team when you're actually doing it. Like you can tell what a good team is, and the Eagles are a really good team. And I think that there have been some differences in this training camp than in past. The practices are definitely longer, definitely more physical. Um, there's certainly intensity. There's certainly good competition. I think the Eagles were really stung by what the last half of the season or last 7 games of the season, how that went down last year. I think that the way Howie Roseman attacked the roster was really interesting and very aggressive. And then when you get that star power in like Saquon Barkley, there's just an energy that comes with that. And so but then at the same time, there's also a lot of mystery. Two new coordinators, both very highly respected. How is this all going to play out? We don't know. Um, Rookies, how much of an impact will they have? So, look, in general, really to date, a very positive preseason, very positive training camp. And I think the Eagles, when you lose like the Eagles lost at the end of last year, you can really go a bunch of different ways. You break up the team, you start from scratch, you add a piece here and there. Eagles made substantial changes, yet they kept the core together. And so I feel like the window for this football team is very much wide open.
So let's start before we get to the players. Let's start with the coaches. On offense, you have a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore. On defense, you have Vic Fangio. What is the first thing that you notice that's different with each of these coordinators from last year?
On offense, more motion prior to the snap, a bit of a faster just pace in and out of the huddle, get the ball out of Jalen's hands, just more rapid, more rapid, more answers for defenses. On defense, I would say there's more pieces moving, blitzing. I think Vic is still very much in the finding out what these players can do phase. And so you see Jeremiah Trotter Jr. taking first team reps, and you see 3 or 4 different guys being used at the starting cornerback position opposite Darius Slay. So there's still some unknown there, but I think that his no nonsense approach is something that has really worked well with the players. And so, um, and more intensity on that side of the ball. I sense more, I guess, overall, guys. I feel like there's more competition and that the roster's deeper, and that when Tuesday, August 27th rolls around at whatever it is, 4 p.m., there'll be some difficult decisions to be made to get down to 53 players.
With regard to Kellen Moore, have you noticed anything about the relationship between this new offensive coordinator and his quarterback?
Mm, Hard for me to tell because I'm not, privy to their moments in the meeting room. I think that Jalen has had a really positive, upbeat sense about him, spending a lot of time after practice with the fans, signing autographs, smiling a lot, enjoying himself a lot. I get the sense that like last year, losing the Super Bowl weighed so heavily on him, and then the big contract also added to that, kind of enormity of the situation. And I feel like he's just a lot looser, and I think he trusts Kellen, and it certainly helps to have Saquon Barkley in the backfield. So with Kellen, you have the ability to kind of move around and experiment a little bit and understand that in general you should have a lot of options on every play. And I think Jalen recognizes that and feels like he's in position to have a great year.
It still hurts Jeff that Saquon is an Eagle. Every time you say it, I could see his face there. the pain again. But I mean, talk about Saquon. He's never run behind an offensive line like this, even with the changes with Kelsey and everybody else there. I mean, there were people at his feet in the backfield before he could do anything. Here, he's going to get to the second level and be able to do things. Can you talk about the opportunity with Saquon there?
First of all, I didn't know that Jeff was a Giants fan,
Yeah,
and
he
so
suffers.
I'm a little hurt. I didn't know that.
I'm a Jersey City boy.
Okay.
He keeps it real, at least.
I understand. I've always respected the Giants organization. So, but they're in this down cycle that has just been going on for way longer than I expected.
Yeah, well, it's going to keep going for a while.
Yeah, apparently. Let's hope so. I think that here's a statistic that I want to throw your way. Last year, Eagles running backs ranked first in the NFL in yards per carry prior to contact. And they ranked 31st in the league in yards per carry after contact. So what does that tell you? It tells you that DeAndre Swift had a lot of room to run when he was handed the football off, and that he didn't break a ton of tackles. And so an offense that sent Miles Sanders to the Pro Bowl in 2022 and that sent DeAndre Swift to the Pro Bowl in 2023 largely retains the same group. Now, there is still a question at right guard, and that is a legitimate question. Who will be the right guard? But I trust Jeff Stoutland. And I believe that Saquon can break tackles. He looks great. He's running with power. I just think he's going to be in for a huge year. And I think that Kellen will work really hard to get Saquon into the passing game. And so I love the addition. I think that he's a great guy, solid player, star player, not a solid player, he's a star player. And so he'll work in perfectly. I think Kenneth Gainwell's had one of the and I've written this many times, more underrated camps of anybody on this roster. I think the Eagles have a terrific situation at running back. So, and Will Shipley's been a very impressive rookie. So it's a really good looking running back room, and Saquon's going to get his touches, and he should have a huge, huge year.
Do you think you mentioned movement, seeing more movement with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator? Is this something that Kellen Moore brings to this particular room that the prior offensive coordinator didn't do?
Yes, and there was a good quote last week after the joint practice against the New England Patriots. Their safety, Jabril Peppers, referred to the Eagles offense and talked about, what are the difficulties of playing the Eagles offense. And he said, the quote that caught my eye was, there's a lot of eye candy with the offense. And I've never heard that statement. And what eye candy means is that, when you're playing defense, there's a lot of guys moving and you have to count for things and you have to kind of, process all of that, but focus on your keys. And I've never heard the Eagles offense spoken about in that way. And that's exciting to me because last year they ranked 31st in the league, I think, in pre-snap motion. And so to hear now that this offense has eye candy is like, wow. Now, look, at the end of the day, there's only so many ways you run plays in the NFL. Kellen Moore is not reinventing the offense. The Eagles have had a lot of success offensively. But when you add some of those other elements and give defenses something else to account for, you open up the possibility for more success. And I think adding all of that together is really promising for this offense.
Talk to us about the rest of the weapons. I mean, obviously, people always focus on depth, the third wide receiver, but I mean, you can't get better than AJ and Devontae at 1 and 2 out there. And you've got your tight ends, you've got Saquon. You talk about eye candy. This was what excited me when there was the signing. Jeff and I went back and forth on, Kellen Moore's past, but what he brings is scheming guys open, giving space by moving them around and giving the quarterback the ability to see the defense. Can you talk about how excited these wide receivers are and these skill players are to play in this particular offense?
Yeah, I mean, look, let's back up for a second. I do acknowledge that this team needs to feel good going into the season at receivers number 3, 4, and 5, and that has not been established yet. And that's why Saturday is an important practice and preseason game. These practices leading up to Saturday. There's a need for depth on the offensive line, but the starting group is as talented as we've ever seen in Philadelphia. And so you have players who can win one-on-one battles already. Now, when you have the ability to scheme them and have more complex routes and concepts are a little bit deeper and have a little bit more build to them, uh, it's not hard to really have high expectations for this offense. I mean, it should be a really, really exciting offense. AJ and Devontae play beautifully off each other. As exciting as it was for the Eagles to go out and sign Barkley and CJ Gardner-Johnson and all these veterans, it was equally important to retain Brown and Smith and Mailata and Dickerson and Jake Elliott and retain your core. And so this offense returns players. A vast majority of the players are starters from last year. AJ and Devontae get along well. They're not jealous of each other's success. So, I mean, all of that is very rare in the NFL. Receivers squabble all the time. These guys don't do that, and it's going to be really tough to stop this offense. That is my expectation. I think Kellen brings that level of matching up, finding weaknesses, making adjustments, preparing Jalen for the blitz. He's just more experienced. He's got more success in his tool bag than did the coaching staff last year. I think the philosophy here is if Nick Sirianni is your CEO, make the people around him better. And that's what they've done in the offseason, both on the player standpoint and from the coaching perspective.
You mentioned Sirianni as the CEO. How does he fit into the play calling on offense, and how does his relationship with the quarterback evolve this year from where it was and the difficulties that were reported on existing last year?
Yeah, so he's not calling the plays. It's Kellen Moore. Nick has input with the preparation during the week and preparing the game plan, but he's not calling plays. And look, he didn't call the plays last year. He didn't call the plays in 2022. He stopped calling the plays in 2021 and turned that over to Shane Steichen. So that part of it is nothing new for Nick, who will still make should we challenge this play? Should we, go for it on whatever? Like, he makes decisions. But yeah, it's going to be Kellen Moore's offense, and Nick. I don't think the relationship with Jalen. I mean, it's different because he's not in that quarterback room all the time. But sometimes different is good and better. And so I think that Nick has used this as an opportunity to expand himself, reinvent himself, if you will, learn more ways to be a great head coach. I've always said that I've told you guys this, I think he's been the best head coach in the history of the Eagles in his first early seasons. Now we're getting into Andy Reid territory. But Andy didn't take this team to the Super Bowl until his fifth season. So, but a big year for Nick, no doubt. I mean, the Eagles have to win football games. Every year is a big year, and but Nick has a lot of trust in Kellen. It seems like, talking to both of them for our preseason broadcasts, that the relationship is really strong. The process has worked really well. The transition to kind of a new way of being a head coach for Nick has been smooth, and I take that in the building here in a very encouraging way.
I want to move to the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, the defensive line people have questions about. I wanted to start with linebacker, though. Vic Fangio said the other day he's open to a rotation at linebacker, but that's not what he wants. He said, I do think you're better off with a set group. Sometimes it's hard to get guys in and out. So there's Nakobe Dean, Jeremiah Trotter, Devin White, Oren Burke, Zach Bond. What do you think that set group is?
To be determined. I don't think I have that answer right now. And I tell you why. I would have said Bond and White, and that could be the answer. But the way Nakobe has played and the way Trot has played, Trotter's not going to start. I mean, but I really didn't expect Jeremiah Trotter Jr. to be anything more than a special teams contributor, a big-time special teams contributor. But he's played himself into potentially being in the defensive tackle or the defensive linebacker rotation. And so that's encouraging. Devin and Zach, once we see game plan here, I think we'll have a better gauge of where they are. I mean, they've played very sparingly in the preseason, and they haven't really tackled in training camp. So what I'm judging is something different than what Vic is judging. Vic is watching every play, grading every play. Are the players in the right position? I don't know what the right position is supposed to be. So, but I like the fact that there's a little bit of competition there. I like the fact that there's some depth there, and that's encouraging. There's been so many rotating linebackers through the years, and boy, it'd be great to have some continuity. And I don't know if there's going to be that, because the thing, as I said earlier with Vic, he's just rolling in players all the time, all the time, all the time. So I can tell you who's taking the reps out there, but I can't tell you in Vic's mind who does he see as the two starting inside linebackers.
Sort of the same tough question, but the competition in depth in the secondary is very interesting to me. You have a lot, bringing back CJ GJ. You've got Isaiah Rogers coming back. Then you've got the guys they drafted with Quentin Mitchell and some of the younger guys. Talk about what you're seeing on the competition there in the secondary.
Yeah, I would say at safety, I'm glad to see Cooper DeJean back on the field, by the way. At safety, it seems pretty cut and dry that it's CJ Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship. Sidney Brown hasn't been on the field yet. I would imagine that he starts the season on PUP, coming back from that torn ACL. So I still want to see some more depth at safety, but James Bradbury's done a nice job. Avonte Maddox has done a nice job. We'll see, but it seems like it's Reed and CJ Gardner-Johnson. And Big Play Slay is one of the starters at cornerback. Who's the other starter? Well, inside, I would say at the moment, it's Quinyon Mitchell. Outside, I would say Isaiah Rogers. Could be Keely Ringo. Who am I missing? Cooper, we don't know about. He's just getting back from the knee injury, or from the hamstring injury. Eli Ricks is taking a bunch of reps. They're rolling guys in and out of there. And so I could see Vic early on kind of matching up with the opposing wide receivers. Hey, I need a big cornerback over here. I need a fast cornerback over here. Let's roll with these two guys. But the mission for the Eagles is to win early in the season, no matter how ugly it is. I was watching practice today with somebody, and he said, "Gosh, I'd really love to see the Eagles starters on Saturday." I said, "What? Are you crazy?" I said, "The Eagles, what's wrong with the way they've started the season the last 2 years? 8-0 in 2022, 10-1 in 2023. And he said, "Yeah, but it was an ugly 10-1. And I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." But that's all that matters, is winning the games early on. What happened late in the season to the Eagles last year wasn't because of what happened in training camp. It was because of they just didn't get better during the season, and they collapsed. And so I would love to see the positions of cornerback, linebacker. That's so interesting to me, because cornerback, linebacker, safety, edge, like, is Bryce Huff the starting? To me, defense has questions at every single level. And I'm glad that a veteran coordinator like Vic is here to kind of sort through all that and not panic, not bow to pressure of, you need to have a starting lineup set in stone by the time your first game begins. That may not be the case for the Philadelphia Eagles.
So here's the difference between the last two seasons and this season. They're going to Brazil. We talked to Dick Vermeil about this about a month ago, and he said there's no way he would want to do that. What have you noticed about this coaching staff, and are they embracing this trip to Brazil, or saying let's get this over with?
I mean, truthfully, everybody's aware of it, but they haven't even dealt with it yet. Coaches are so single-minded in their thought process. Stay in the moment. So everybody else is doing the work. All the travel plans have been made. All the logistics have been worked out. They're going to leave on Wednesday night and come back Friday right after the game. So it is not a trip vacation, if you will. They're not going to go sightseeing down in Sao Paulo. They're going to get there. They're going to have a walkthrough on Thursday. They're going to go win the game on Friday and come home right after the game. So there's only I think a 1 hour time difference down there. I don't think it's really. I mean, look, we got this roster goes from 90 players to 53 on Tuesday. any player who's thinking about Brazil is crazy. Focus on your job right now. And I don't think the coaches ever look ahead. Now, are there scouts preparing for the Packers? Yes. And when the practice script comes out and the Eagles are then focused on that game, they will prepare for the Packers. But right now, they're just trying to give as many players as they can the opportunity to play in practice the rest of the week and then on Saturday against the Vikings and try to keep the best 53 players.
You get to stamp your passport and go to Brazil?
Actually, no, I'm not going, and I'm excited. We're having a watch party at Lincoln Financial Field. We would love you all to be there.
Ooh.
We are expecting, 10,000 or so fans. That's what we kind of have limited. We want to make it a really incredible experience for fans sitting in the stands at Lincoln Financial Field, watching these huge monitors. So I'm hosting the program, the show, and we're going to put on a show. Pre-game, halftime, we've got a drone show. All the way through, we're going to make this as EAGLAS Eagles as we possibly can. So my responsibility is hosting that first of its kind event at Lincoln Financial Field, and I'm really excited about it.
Is this the biggest party you've ever had?
The biggest party I've ever had, boys, as you know, was winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was kind of
standing up
bigger.
there and having a few million people saying "Fly Eagles Fly."
I do want to ask one more. We're going to let you go, but the kickoff change. What's the focus on that at practice and the talk kind of among teams with that right now as they all figure out
Yeah.
how they're going to use it?
So the first real glimpse that I've gotten of it was in the joint practices last week in New England, because what they've done here is just very cursory looks. So they don't want to do anything in front of a crowd, right? Like they can practice at a walkthrough related. In New England, I mean, you saw like bloopers being kicked. You saw balls being directed to the sideline. You saw spot kicking. And these kickers are so incredible at putting the ball exactly where they want it or spinning it or just making – nobody could return it. I mean, the Patriots had penalty after penalty after penalty. The Eagles got lit up. What we're seeing in the preseason is just kick off to the goal line, have a return, evaluate your cover teams, evaluate your blockers, evaluate your return man. What's going to happen in the regular season? Hate to disappoint, but knowing how special teams coordinators are, do you want to take the risk of kicking off and having a big return cost you a game and potentially costing you your job? Or you're going to kick it off into the end zone and have them bring it out to the 30. It's not that punitive of a penalty when you only lose 5 yards from last year to this year. Now, I thought the NFL would consider later in the preseason, early in the regular season, changing the rule and having teams start at the 35-yard line. Then you've got some real punishment for a kick, for a touchback. The percentage of scores goes up on a drive that begins at the 35 versus the 30. But that's apparently not going to happen. So I think teams are going to play it safe and kick it through the end zone. But what do I know?
So do you think the kick returner has become obsolete?
The idea is not. The idea is that you have a returner, you inject that play back into the game. But special teams coordinators don't care about TV ratings.
Right.
They want to keep their jobs. And if you're giving up kickoff returns, big kickoff returns that lead to touchdowns and leading to you losing games, you're going to lose your job. So, potentially it could be a really big play. I just think special teams coordinators don't want to take that risk. I just don't think they want to take that risk. So, but what do I know? I mean, if my only penalty is kicking off and have it come back to the 30 versus potentially a 65-yard return, I want to keep my job. I'm going to put it on defense. I'm going to kick it off out of bounds or into the end zone and have a touchback and bring it to the 30 and then play defense.
Coaches are risk averse. I mean, that's why they want quarterbacks that don't turn the ball over.
That's right. I mean, those kinds of plays cost a coordinator his job. And the Eagles and every other team, they don't want that. Now, that said, look, we could see some really fun stuff because these kickers have such incredible ability to put the ball where they want with the kind of spin on it that they want. And then it's just just brutal. I mean, for return men who are staring these cover guys right in the face. And I know they're only coming down from the 35-yard line or 40-yard line or whatever, but they're still moving fast. They're there quicker, and yeah, it's just not a good future for a kickoff returner.
Well, Eagles Insider Dave Spadaro, we always appreciate the time. We'll let you get ready for the final preseason game and then for the second biggest party you've ever hosted. Thanks so much for the time, man.
How do you get tickets? By the way, Jason, before we let him go,
how do we get
Thank
tickets?
you. PhiladelphiaEagles.com, PhiladelphiaEagles.com/watch party. And tickets are selling really well. People are excited to watch the game with other fans at Lincoln Financial Field. And if you've never seen a drone show, by the way, they're incredible. We've had them. The first one I saw was during COVID, over by the river, or over by the lake over here in the park, FDR Park, and then we had one by the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and it was incredible, lighting up the Parkway. So those are only two of the reasons to go. The other reason, of course, is I'm hosting. I'm going to have a ton of fun doing it. We're going to have a taste of Brazil throughout the stadium. A bunch of alumni are going to be there. So it'll be great. It'll be great. And, for a lot of people who can't get to the stadium, it's an amazing opportunity. So we are very excited about it, and we hope that everyone listening considers coming down and making a party of it at Lincoln Financial Field on September 6th.
We'll put it out on all our social accounts, and I can't wait to talk to you as it gets closer. Thanks, Dave.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.